what a pleasure it is to be here with you today. I feel honored to represent, along with Sean, our family, the Covey family, and I represent my brothers and sisters who are here and their spouses, as well as my precious mother, who's right here in the front. And I must tell you that the name Principle-Centered Leadership came about through my mom. It was her idea. And here we are around it with a center that is all about developing principle-centered leaders. So it's a tribute to my mother as well. If my father were here today, I know that he would want the focus to not be on him, but rather to be on the principles that we're teaching, the principle-centered leadership, and especially on the impact that it has on people and on their lives. Because for him, it was all about making a difference, mattering. It was about, in one word, contribution. In fact, I'll never forget when I was a young teenage boy. It was when I was about 14 years old. My father had just received his doctorate. And that was a big thing. I remember he'd walk around the house and he'd say, "Don't call me Dad anymore. Call me Dr. Dad." and so I remember sitting down with him and I said, "Dad, that's really great. What a great thing to get your doctorate. I'm proud of you." And he said, "Well, thanks, son. That's nice. And this is a nice thing, and it's an important thing to do this." He goes, "But let me tell you something." He said, "A doctorate is a good thing, is an important thing because you develop yourself in achieving it. But it's an achievement, and that's important. But there's something even more important than achievement, and that's contribution. It's better than achievement, higher than achievement." And so I'm excited to have this doctorate, but what would be even more significant is for anyone that has received an honorary doctorate. Because honorary doctorates are given for contribution, not just for achievement. And again, nothing was wrong with achievement, but the bigger idea was contribution. That idea of contribution is what sticks with me today. My father would say, life is about contribution, not accumulation. Life isn't about the accumulation of things. Rather, it is about the contribution to other people's lives. And I saw this time and again in the work of my father, this principle of contribution come out in a variety of formats. And it began, if you think about it, with his study of Viktor Frankl. And some of the insights that came there around proactivity. But the insight of Viktor Frankl really was that his idea of logotherapy, which is all about meaning. It was about meaning, about purpose, about contribution being the differentiator in what mattered to people and what made a difference. And you saw that in my father's work, from the idea of to live, to love, to learn, to leave a legacy. Leave a legacy is all about contribution. From the idea of going from survival to stability to success to significance. Significance, and a life of significance, is all about contribution, making a difference. I see this in my father's definition of leadership, which he so beautifully defined as leadership is communicating people's worth and potential so clearly that they're inspired to see it in themselves. They come to see it in themselves because of how we see it and communicate it to them so clearly. That's contribution. My father would often say, "My passion is your potential." That's contribution. He saw his life's work as releasing human potential. That's contribution. And that was his contribution, to try to release human potential. And that's one of the main purposes of this center here at Utah State University, is to help students and others find and release their potential. He often would say, don't treat people according to their behavior. Treat them according to their potential. And that's what he was all about. And it's a contribution that continues to this day and will live on through this center, as well as the work that he's doing through his organization, the FranklinCovey Company. My father also taught this principle, that to make a new significant contribution requires a major new preparation. You couldn't just expect to contribute something new without paying the price, without the new preparation. And he modeled that in how he operated. And in fact, when he formed in the early days, it was first Stephen R. Covey and Associates, then became Covey Leadership Center, and then became FranklinCovey. When he left the university to form Stephen R. Covey and Associates at age 51, pretty bold move, the reason he did it was because he wanted to have a greater impact. He wanted to make a greater contribution to society. That was what it was all about. That's what motivated him. It's what inspired him. In fact, some people thought it was about, well, maybe he wants to make more money or, do more things like this. It was never about that for him. In fact, he wrote a letter to me and a few of my siblings in which he said at the time, covetousness has never had any place in my entire life. In fact, speaking very frankly, I don't even aspire to make money. I aspire to make contributions. And it is the only thing that motivates and sustains me. Life is about contribution, not accumulation. When I look at his contributions to society, as manifest in a variety of formats ranging from literally tens of millions of books sold all around the world, not including the bootlegged copies as well. When I look at who he worked with and met with, over 30 heads of state teaching principle-centered leadership, literally thousands of leaders, including many senior leaders like Doug Conant and John Pepper and many others of major organizations. And I look at those contributions, and yet, perhaps his greatest contribution is the work that he's doing with and through schools and with students. And my brother Sean will tell you more about this. I'll conclude by saying that my father had one last great contribution, and he made a new preparation to do it. And this is forthcoming. It's his last book that is coming out soon, that my sister, Cynthia, is writing with my dad. They'd been working on it for years before he passed away. And Cynthia is finishing the project. And the book will be entitled, Live Life in Crescendo. And the idea behind this is that your greatest contribution is always in front of you. It's never in the past. It's always in front of you. You live life in crescendo. And you see your greatest contribution always in front of you. That's how my father did. And he's yet to make this last great contribution. And I think his greatest contribution will live on, not just through the work done with organizations and corporations and businesses, although that is invaluable. I think his greatest contribution will be in the form of the work done with individuals and students and leaders in this society in developing principle-centered leadership. Thank you so much. What an honor to be here with you today. Thank you.
I'm a little taller than my older brother, so I better put this up. Well, this is a great honor to be with you today at this historic event. And so I'm very pleased to share the stage today with Steve Young. Steve Young and I were quarterbacks together at BYU. I was a freshman when he was a senior, so I was his understudy. I just have to tell this quick experience, and you'll get to see Steve later. But we were playing UCLA at UCLA, and it was a big game. It was televised, and two good teams playing. And Steve got hurt in the second quarter, and he went down. We didn't know what he had, but he was taken off the field. And Robbie Bosco, the backup, was put in. I was third string. I was a freshman. I was 18. I'd never taken a snap with varsity. And suddenly I thought, boy, if Robbie goes down, I'm in. And in the first series, Robbie got hit really hard and fell down on the ground and wasn't getting up. And I have never prayed like I prayed then. And I said, Steve, rise from the dead. And miraculously, Steve all of a sudden got better. And he went out and he finished the game and won the game in the last minute. It was extraordinary. And I'm just really glad that he rose up. So there's so many great things we could say about my father, and we're so excited about this center. I remember before he passed away being with him on a few occasions in big audiences, and he would do a Q&A, and people would ask, what are you most proud of? And he'd always say, my family, and then he'd say, the work we're doing with children, with students, young students. So let me tell you briefly about how this began. So about 20 years ago, Muriel Summers, a principal of an elementary school called A.B. Combs Elementary in Raleigh, North Carolina, was desperate. She's leading this school, 28 languages spoken in the school, high poverty, they're failing. Her superintendent comes to her and says, we're going to shut you down unless you change and get more students and attract more students. She was a magnet school, a school with a theme. She's desperate. She looks and finds out that Stephen Covey is coming in town. She had heard of him to speak. So she went to this big conference. She was late, so she had to sit on the front row. And she said, while he was speaking on the 7 Habits during that day-long seminar, she kept thinking to herself, oh my goodness, begin with the end in mind. Be proactive. Don't be a victim of your past. Mutual benefit is a way to win people over, and so forth. As she listened to him speak on the 7 Habits, she kept thinking, this is exactly what we need in our school. This is exactly what we need for our children, for our adults. So during a break, she got up her courage, and she went up and she said, Dr. Covey, my name is Muriel Summers, elementary school principal here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Can these principles be taught to young kids? And he said, well, how young? And she said, well, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds? And he said, looked up and said, I don't know, why not? Why don't you give it a try and let me know how it goes? And so she took him literally, and she went back, and with her staff, they said, we're going to develop a school that teaches leadership to kids, how to lead your own life, how to be a leader among your friends, how to be a leader of audiovisual or of math or of science, and how to really find your passion and utilize your talents. And so she built this amazing school. She called it a leadership model based on the 7 Habits. She started with teaching her staff the 7 Habits, and then she taught all the kids. Even kindergartners were taught how to say, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And it was all about turning the school over to the kids. So she assigned leadership roles for the children. She basically taught all of her teachers, every child has genius. Every child can be a leader. Give them leadership roles and responsibilities. Turn the school over to the kids. And so they learned how to speak publicly, how to greet people, how to run things. If visitors came, she'd have a group of students, take them around the school. She had student leaders, student greeters, hundreds and hundreds of leadership roles. She taught them how to set and achieve goals. She gave them all a leadership data notebook where they kept track of their goals and how they were doing. And this went on for a couple of years, and the students started to excel. They could feel the belief in them, the affirmation, and they excelled and they rose to the occasion. And this school, that was one of the worst performing schools in the area, became the #1 magnet school in the country. High poverty, 28 languages, and they just excelled. And the enrollment went from 300 to 800. Property values in the area doubled. Everybody wanted to come to the school. And A.B. Combs Elementary is now visited each year. Muriel Summers is still the principal. Is now visited each year by thousands of people from all around the world. And this model, which she began, is called The Leader in Me, which is now in over 4,000 schools around the world in over 50 countries. And it's extraordinary. And this is what Stephen was most proud of, was this work that he was doing with children, because as my brother said, his mission was all about contribution and affirmation. So as we look to the future and look at this center here that we're establishing, Stephen Covey Leadership Center, I see Utah State becoming the A.B. Combs of higher education. That's my challenge. So that we have universities and colleges from all around the world coming to visit this place to see the great work that you're producing, to see the leaders that you are producing, and to see how principal-centered leadership can be integrated into a curriculum to help produce students that are career-ready and life-ready and that can really contribute to the world. My father, he loved his family. As my brother said, my mother was the one that came up with the term principle-centered leadership. And Mom, can you just raise your hand so everyone can see you right there? Really high. There you go. But I look to my father and I'm thinking, what can I do to, thank him and to carry on his legacy? And I always think of, just be a good father and a good husband. I remember one letter he wrote all of our family one time, and I kept it, and it's really profound, where he said, we all got married, we had spouses, and he said to us, forgive each other. He said, I saw growing up many families that would get little divisions, and over time they were far apart many years later. It's not worth it. He challenged all of us. He said, just forgive each other. You'll all make mistakes. Don't judge each other. Don't compare yourselves with each other. Don't compare jobs and careers, but just love each other and forgive each other, and don't let any divisions or partitions develop between you. It's not worth it. It was profound. And my best friends today are my brothers and sisters, and I'm really glad of that. And I'm glad that my father taught us that powerful principle. So my brother Stephen just shared the quote that he was famous for about leadership. And I remember the first time I heard this, I was up at Sundance at one of his seminars. And I said, Dad, what is leadership to you? We're working on a leadership program right now at the company. Can you please describe your definition of leadership? And that's where he said, leadership is communicating to another person their worth and potential so clearly they are inspired to see it in themselves. And when he said that, I teared up because it was so genuine. I remember feeling, that's exactly how you make me feel, Dad, like I can do anything. And you are living the quote that you just shared with me. So it is a pleasure to be with you today. I'm excited to see what Utah State can do. As was mentioned, FranklinCovey gave Utah State an ongoing license to use all of Stephen Covey's IP and all of the rest of FranklinCovey's intellectual property to help build principle-centered leaders. So I wish you the best. Thank you so much for having us today, and good luck.